Michael Wilbon and Stephen A. Smith, we all got knocked down a peg in that one. 84 points, the lowest amount of points, the fewest amount of points to win a game this season, regular season and playoffs. What'd you guys see?
Well, it was an atrocity offensively. Nobody could hit shots. When you look at Devin Booker, he shot 8 for 22. Chris Paul shot 6 of 22. On the other side, Paul George was an absolutely awful 5 for 20 from the field, 1 of 9 from three-point range, and really went 12 of 16 from the free throw line. Missed 2 pivotal free throws in the fourth quarter. The other 2 he had missed on purpose. In the end, though, what it comes down to is this. The Clippers needed to step up and make something happen offensively. They put themselves in the double-digit hole. They weren't able to overcome it. And ultimately, that's going to be the story for why the Clippers lost this game more so than anything else.
But I will say this. That's some hellacious defense played tonight.
Yeah.
That's some great defense. That's some 1980s and 90s defense. I'm dating myself. I don't care if the kiddies don't know what that means. Go to YouTube and find it.
Right.
That game had defense, and they let them play. But the Clippers can't wait until the third quarter to start to play as hard as they did in the third quarter in both games 3 and 4. They were in the Suns' head, I believed.
Yeah.
But you can't wait until the third quarter to do that because you're playing from behind by 16, like Stephen A. mentioned. So there's a lot to relive in this game, even though there was no artistry whatsoever.
There's a couple of things we owe the viewers. Number one, Kendrick Perkins was right. We were wrong. We both picked the Suns. He picked the Clippers. Number two,
we both picked the
Suns.
He picked the Suns.
No, we picked the Clippers. He picked the Suns. Yes. Number two, because we picked the Clippers, we tend to get a bit emotional about it. Let's just be honest about it, because we want our picks to be absolutely correct, and it wasn't tonight. But really, what it comes down to is this, Mike. I saw a Suns team that was running their offense but wasn't making shots.
Right.
I saw a Clippers team that, particularly midway to late in the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, were very, very sloppy and disoriented in my mind.
All right, Kendrick's in the studio right now with a big smile on his face, by the way.
Yes.
You know he is.
Yeah. Okay, what do you guys see moving forward? Game 5's Monday in Phoenix.
I think it's over. I'm not saying the Clippers can't win, but I wouldn't bet my money on them, because if the Suns, with Devin Booker hampered, with Chris Paul working off some of that rust, but still doing so, still able to go on the road and win a game like this, that crowd waiting back for them in Phoenix is going to be as rabid and as raucous as ever. I think the Suns are going to be ready as a result, and the Clippers are going to have to bring their A game. I just wouldn't bet my money on them in a Game 5.
This has to be a very full Suns. They toughed this out. The Clippers came after them again, and they survived it with everything. Remember this, Chris Paul, he's on that list, of guys who haven't won championships: Stockton, Malone, Ewing, Mullen, the great players ever who haven't done it. Chris Paul wants to get to the finals and win a championship. And this is as good a chance. I mean, he had it in Houston, got sort of a game and a half away from it, and now he's right there again.
I will say this.
Hard to see them losing that game.
We can't ignore this. I'd be remiss in neglecting to point out this pivotal point. Tonight, we saw Paul George struggle from the free throw line. We saw the Clippers do the same. And that's what we have to pay attention to, particularly when you're talking about going back to Phoenix. It will take an A game from the Clippers to derail what appears to be the inevitable.
That list, I didn't mention my man Reggie Miller. I don't want Reggie mad at me.
That's right. No, they don't want to do that.
Cover that
It's
up.
not good to have Reggie Miller mad at you. That's just not wise. That's just not wise.
All right, Stephen A. and Michael Wilbon, nothing but net, which we cannot say about the Clippers and Suns in Game 4.
Is this more about the Suns or the Clippers?
I'm going to let Max go first on this. Go ahead, Max.
Well, it's the Clippers. I'll save. I'm going to say the Clippers, and I'll save CP-3 and Devin Booker for you. But this is the Clippers. This is Ty Lue. You got to give it to the guy. It's not like he didn't coach well in the first 2 games, considering he didn't have his best player, and they lost by the skin of their teeth on the road. In front of a raucous crowd. Stephen A. is complaining their crowd isn't good, but the Phoenix crowd was good. And they won. They came within a possession of winning both games, really. And that's Ty Lue. In the last series, he goes to the small ball lineup, Nick Batum. And in this series, he realizes, wait, I got to get bigger. Puts in Zubac, right? But then it's not just, well, okay, fine, I've made this one substitution, basically, or changed the rotation a little bit. What happened last night that was even different from Game 2? It was a very close game. It's Zubac and Morris off the bench. There's no Boogie Cousins in the rotation. There's Terrence Mann defensively getting an enormous assignment. There's Patrick Beverly. So first it's the It's the in-game adjustments and the in-series adjustments. But then it's also, Stephen A., the confidence Ty Lue instills in his team. You know, I'm thinking of the play where Kennard, late in the game, missed that three. Remember, it would have put him up 19. The game would have been done in the fourth quarter. He misses the three. They come back on the other end. They hit a three. It's now a 13-point game. They cut it to single digits, and you started getting the feeling, here it comes, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. They're going to do it again. They could sweep the Clippers. But they remained resilient. That has a lot to do with their leader, who is, in fact, their coach, Ty Lue.
Ty Lue may very well be the best coach in basketball right now. And what I love about it is that he could have had the Knicks job. No, I'm sorry, not the Knicks job. He should have had the Brooklyn Nets job. That wasn't to be. He should have had the Lakers job. That wasn't to be. But what I love about him right now is that without LeBron James, he's showing his brilliance as a coach and showing that he's a top-notch coach that should have been given far more credit than he ever received. That's number one. Having said all of that, I would tell you it's still the Suns for me as it pertains to the question because of the shooting woes of Devin Booker and Chris Paul, obviously. 5 for 21, 5 for 19, a combined 10 for 40. They haven't missed 30 shots in a game all year long. But that's what happened last night. You can also attribute injuries to it to some degree because Cameron Payne being out after just 4 minutes due to an ankle injury is a tremendous loss. How do we know this? Because in game 2, the brother played 37 minutes backing up CP-3, who was out due to COVID. And what happened? This dude drops 29 points, 8 assists without a single turnover. 0 turnovers in 37 minutes. That's a brother you miss when you consider that, particularly when he shot 50% from the field in that game as well, en route to those 29 points. He pushes the ball up the floor. He's aggressive. His aggression and his athleticism can match what the Beverleys and the Terrence Manns of the world may throw at you. And we know they played stout defense on Devin Booker. But let's face reality. If we really calling it like we see it, this dude got his nose broke in game 2. He's playing with a mask on in game 3. So I'll throw him a slight mulligan in that regard. But in the end, it comes down to CP3 and Devin Booker. If they play like that, Phoenix is going to lose this series. They know they have to play better. They have to be better. You can't be that ineffective and that inefficient against these Clippers. We see how exceptionally well coached they are. We see that they're a bunch of rough riders. We see that they're not scared of anything. And you combine that with Booker and CP3 shooting the ball the way that they did. I'm sorry. And let me not forget to put Zubac in there with 16 points, 15 rebounds. We've been raving about DeAndre Ayton, but Zubac sold up last night and was formidable in and of himself. So all of those things played a role.
Well, you can't deny injury. Like Payne and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, you can point to bad luck, and you'd be right. Just like you could point to bad luck with Kawhi, and you'd also be right. I've said from the beginning, injury has completely decided the playoffs this series. Every series, you're seeing the best or second best player on the team out with injury, like starting with the Lakers and KD and AD and, LeBron and AD, and the Nets, obviously, Harden and Kyrie, in every series. And this series is no different. But again, the Clippers were on the other end of that when they weren't playing with Kawhi, who they still didn't have. And we didn't, when we were analyzing that game, simply say, well, they don't have Kawhi, therefore we lost. You have to get into why. You're absolutely right to say Devin Booker shows up basically with a broken face and a face mask. It probably affected his shooting. Chris Paul comes off of health and safety protocols, or did he have COVID? I don't know. But clearly he was affected. He was rusty. He was not the usual Chris Paul. Cameron Payne hurt him earlier, and if he's not all those things are true. Then the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you prepared for the opportunity? And a lot of other coaches, Stephen A., other than if it's not Ty Lue, don't have the courage to make those kind of adjustments, the courage of their convictions, and say, nope, we're going to change this right now. Ty Lue does, and he's not afraid to. We think about, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, but the Philadelphia 76ers, do they lose that series if Ty Lue is their coach?
Well, probably not, because Ty Lue probably would have benched Ben Simmons. So that's something that's worthy of pointing out. I don't know the answer to that question. But what I will tell you is this. When you look at these playoffs, we got a Clippers team. Just like I said, these playoffs are, injuries aside, these playoffs have been incredibly thrilling. I mean, right now, night to night, we're looking at the Atlanta Hawks, and I said to you the other day, they could win the championship. Well, guess what? So could the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard.
I don't see them winning the championship without Kawhi, Stephen A.
I didn't say I see it, man. I said they could. That's all I'm trying to say.
Everything's up for grabs.
And what I mean is everything's up for grabs because right now, let's say, for example, Atlanta. Suppose Atlanta beats Milwaukee, and then the Clippers end up upending Phoenix. And then you got those Rough Riders putting the same kind of defense on Trae Young that we saw them do against Devin Booker over the last 2 games, or to a lesser degree CP-3 last night. All I'm trying to say is that it's really up for grabs, and you don't know, which makes it very exciting.
If they can win a championship without Kawhi, put Ty Lue in the Hall of Fame right now. Stephen A., the reason I brought up the Clippers is who was their last coach? Doc Rivers. If Doc was the coach of the Clippers, they'd be down 0-3 right now.
Interesting point. We'll get into that a little bit later. The other part that's interesting, Stephen A., it's all up for grabs. We also have 4 teams that haven't won a chip since the merger, which is, I think, 76. We'll keep it rolling here, fellas. More good stuff to get to in the NBA. The Hall of Famer, Scottie Pippen, talking all things